Things First is sponsored by Ram Trucks, built to serve.
Welcome back. We'll get to Deshaun and Mahomes in a second, but first, Thunder, Rockets, Chris Paul pulling off the filthy nutmeg before getting the easy layup. I think even he was surprised.
This was a really, really fun game. You saw Russ get the standing ovation and video tribute, and then you saw the surging Thunder, who have been, after starting, 11-17, 11-2 in their last 13, they get a big win.
Ooh, T-Wolves Blazers. Jarrett Culver driving to the cup, Kenny. Nice one-handed hammer over Kent Bazemore.
Texas Tech's own Jarrett Culver. That is a nice finish at the rim right there. Look out below. That's a huge dunk right there. Got another guy on the poster.
Lose 2 in the NCAA tournament.
Exactly.
Sixers
UVA, baby.
Throw it in there.
Al Horford tapping it back to Josh Richardson.
Those surging Celtics, this is a bad loss. You got no Joel Embiid for Philly. You have a huge lead early, and you end up blowing the basketball game. And, by the way, Philly now, season-long tiebreaker has been decided. If these two teams finish with a better record in the battle for the 2 seed, Philly gets it.
Ouch. College basketball, Texas Rio Grande against UMKC, Jordan Jackson.
Oh, no. Why
that is a beautiful finish, and that guy on defense knows better than the jump, Jenna.
Didn't even try.
He had no shot. Look at this on the break.
What?
He had no shot at being able to slow him down. Why would you jump when you know nothing good is going to happen?
Heady play from the UMKC defender. UMKC obviously stands for University of Missouri, Kansas City.
There you go.
A little hometown university. Okay. Oh, speaking of my hometown,
so usually get dunked.
How about this?
Whoa. Texans, Chiefs squaring off, Nick, in KC on Sunday. Bet you didn't know that. These two teams last met in October, with Deshaun and the Texans getting the better of Mahomes and KC. This time around, the Chiefs are well rested, coming off a bye, while the Texans had to scrape by last week in overtime in order to move on. Kenny, any chance Houston can beat Kansas City again?
No shot.
None.
Because if you look at the first matchup, Houston won that game by being able to run the football. They ran up almost 200 yards rushing between Carlos Hyde and Deshaun Watson. That defense is much improved since they met in Week 6. And if you look at the last month of the season, since Week 11, you're talking about having the 9th-ranked total defense in the National Football League, but number 1 in some key statistical categories. So I just look at this defense, knowing that it was going to take some time for Steve Spagnuolo to implement his scheme. You realize that these guys are going to continue to improve the more football they play. So I look at this Kansas City Chiefs defense as being a much different defense than Deshaun Watson saw earlier in the season. And for that reason, coupled with the fact that Andy Reid is money after bye weeks and Bill O'Brien might be the worst coach left in the playoff field, I give a huge edge to the Chiefs.
Here's what I do with that Week 6 matchup. I ball it up and I throw it away because it doesn't matter at all.
My notes.
The Week 6 matchup, the Chiefs did not have their starting left tackle. They did not have their starting left guard. They did not have their best defensive player, Chris Jones. They did not have their second-best wide receiver, Sammy Watkins. And Patrick Mahomes went into the game with a banged-up ankle, and during the game, after being on fire early, got the ankle rolled up on again, and then his effectiveness was totally limited. Despite all that, the Chiefs had a big lead and were en route to increasing that lead when a bizarre play happened where Patrick Mahomes sees a flag thrown, thinks he has a free play, so he throws into double coverage in the end zone. The ball is picked off. The referees then get together and say, that flag we threw, actually, we didn't mean to throw it. So he thought he had a free play, tried to take advantage of it. That flipped the game at one point, and then also there was a sack fumble with 10 seconds left in the half that led to points for Houston. Despite all that, Kansas City had a chance to win the football game. They just couldn't close it. But your point on the defensive turnaround is important. Also, prior even to Week 11, since this game in Week 6, the Chiefs have played one bad game, the Titans game. And that wasn't even a bad game. It was a bad final 5 minutes of the game where they gagged it away. Since then, they have played Green Bay to 1 score without Patrick Mahomes. They've beaten Minnesota without Patrick Mahomes. They went to New England and beat the New England Patriots as the Patriots were on their descent down. The Chiefs right now, you guys joke about it, it's true. I've been a Chiefs fan my whole life. This is the most well-balanced, the most dangerous Chiefs team of my lifetime. We have had offenses in Kansas City as good or better than this one, last year most notably, but there was also an offense led by Trent Green that was 13-3, Priest Holmes, you had Hall of Fame offensive linemen, but they did not have defenses. In the 90s, you had some spectacular defenses led by Derek Thomas and Neil Smith, but you did not have the offenses to go along with it. Kansas City Chiefs have not since Lynn Dawson led them to Super Bowl IV with Bobby Bell and Willie Lanier and the great defenders behind them. They have not had a team that you could argue has a top-flight offense and a top-flight defense. And I know people don't want to acknowledge the Chiefs have a top-flight defense, but over the course of the season, they're top 10 in every major statistical category. They get to the opposing quarterback, they force turnovers, and the pass defense has been exceptional the final third of the season. Conversely, Canty, you mentioned the Texans' coaching issues. I agree with you wholeheartedly. The other issue for the Texans is this. They have as bad of a secondary as any team in the postseason. Coming to Arrowhead against a healthy Chiefs passing attack, I don't think Houston's going to be able to hold them under 30. So are you going to go to Arrowhead against the defense playing like this and score 34, score 35? I don't think you are, and I think the coaching mismatch is an enormous one as well. So we're in lockstep on this. I would be shocked. I wouldn't be shocked if the Chiefs don't win the Super Bowl. Baltimore is a tough team.
Yes.
And if Baltimore loses, Tennessee, as I mentioned, already beat the Chiefs. But I would be shocked if the Chiefs lose this football game, even knowing how many times the Chiefs have had home playoff games only to end in horrifying defeat.
So give me a way the Texans can do it. How do the Texans pull this off if they are going to even come up with a game plan to stop this Chiefs team?
Well, I think it's got to look similar to what it looked like in Week 6. You're going to have to control time of possession. The Texans had the ball 40 minutes in that game, so I think they're going to have to play keep away a little bit with that Kansas City Chiefs offense, just because you know that the Kansas City Chiefs weapons are too much for your defense, especially the guys on the back end, to be able to match up with. So I think that has to be a big part of your formula, leaning on Carlos Hyde and Duke Johnson. And Duke Johnson could be the X factor in this game for the Texans as a receiver out of the backfield. That's an area where the Kansas City Chiefs defense isn't very good. So I think that that's an opportunity for Deshaun Watson to exploit. But it's going to have to look a lot like the second half of the wild card game against the Bills and overtime, where Deshaun Watson just takes over. I think Bill O'Brien has got to get him involved in the game early, not just as a thrower, but as a runner with read option, getting him out on the perimeter of that Chiefs defense, because that's when you really put the pressure on defenses. When you have a quarterback that's out there on the edge, has the ability to run, but can also throw the ball down the field, give those receivers time to uncover, I think that's how you put pressure on that Chiefs defense. Another thing that we have to keep an eye on is Juan Thornhill, the safety, being out. I mean, week 17, he has the knee injury, and they're going to ask Armani Watts to fill in a second-year player. We'll see how that goes. You're probably talking about the second most important position group when it comes to continuity and communication beyond the offensive line, the defensive backs. And so being able to make sure you communicate the coverages and the calls between him and Tyrann Mathieu, that's going to be something to keep an eye out on early in this game.
Here's how the Texans win. They have to, for the first time all year, get out to a good start. The only team in the NFL to not score a single opening drive touchdown, were Bill O'Brien's Houston Texans, which with Deshaun Watson and DeAndre Hopkins on your team, that is unspeakable how bad that is, especially when you're an offensive-minded coach. Your opening drive, those plays are scripted, should be your best offensive series of the game. They haven't scored a single opening drive touchdown all game. They have to take advantage of that injury. I knew you'd bring it up. In their first matchup, DeAndre Hopkins and Will Fuller, I think it was, both had critical drops when they were running open. The Chiefs have really shored that part of their defense up, but no Juan Thornhill matters. And if this game is close late, you will feel the fear in the building, in Kansas City. There have been some horrifying home playoff losses. Chiefs' last 8 home playoff games, they are 1-7. They lost a game where they scored 2 touchdowns, their opponent scored none. They lost a game where the deciding play was a touchdown pass thrown from the quarterback to the quarterback. They lost a game where they didn't punt the entire game but still found a way to lose it. They lost a game where they missed 3 field goals as a 13-3 team in a 10-7 game. They have some awful home losses, and Andy Reid, if the Chiefs go on to win the Super Bowl, Andy Reid's a Hall of Famer, minted. If he has another awful playoff loss. And if it even comes close to that and you feel the team tighten up, I do wonder what the feeling in that stadium is and if the Texans start feeling like playing with house money here. Fortunately, in the fourth quarter, Chiefs should be up by about 17 points, so I'm not going to have to worry about any of that. But that's how you do it.
A lot has changed since that October matchup. We'll have to wait and see. All right, coming up, is it time for the Patriots to close the books on the Tom Brady era? That's next on First Things First.
I thought that book got closed, but...